Do you have a tool in your stack that nobody is really using? I've talked to people where it's things like we have a CDP that we've been implementing for the past 14 months, or we have some project or some new tool that we have, and it's at 70% ready to go, and you ask about it 3 months later, and it's still at 70% ready to go. Things like you have a BI tool, and you have dashboards, or you have reports with links in them, and you tag the dashboards, and you tag the links to see if anyone looks at the dashboards or clicks the links, and when you look at it, you realize no one's been looking at these dashboards, or no one's been clicking on the links. Teams that you get a new tool, and you get your team certified in it. You have some process to make sure that your entire team gets certified in whatever new tool or technology is, and you get them all certified, but it doesn't actually turn into any real work. These are tools where the problem is not a technology problem. This is a human problem, and this is an example of where the tools aren't failing teams and companies. It's the humans that are failing the tools. Now, it doesn't mean, again, tools can be the wrong tool. Tools can be broken. Implementation certainly can be broken. That's not to say that stuff doesn't happen, but more often than not, even when that happens, it's a human problem. So, but there are 4 high-level categories that I've seen of why tools die on the vine and end up in the graveyard, and maybe you're still paying for it months or even years later. It's not necessarily, honestly, implementation. It can be where tools go to die. But generally, if you're implementing and you're doing this thing where we've been building this for 3 years and we had to go back to zero multiple times, that happens. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about where these failure modes actually occur other than implementation, which is the majority. I would say 70-75% of the time when you have a problem with a tool, it's a human problem, not an implementation one. So the categories. Category 1, it's the wrong buy. Even before you sign it, it was just the wrong purchase. The story that comes to my head here is a company that when I was working at a Google Analytics 360 reseller and we were selling GA360, we had a client that wanted a new implementation license for GA360, and their company already had one. They didn't need to buy it. They had it. They just needed to get access to it. But, think of it as like there was like a B2B division, there was a B2C division, and the B2C division had it, and the B2B division wanted it. But they did not want to have a shared implementation, a shared place for GA360 with the other part of their own company. And they insisted on spending $150,000 a year to have their own GA360 implementation, whole setup from scratch, rather than even risk having a user in there who could see the data on both sides. The aspect of having even one user that wasn't them that could go in and see their data, they didn't want their own company to see their data. I would call that, if you're in a toxic company or something with politics, you might say, well, that's a good spend. But in general, I would say that's not buying a tool to use it. Other wrong buy reasons, I would say buying a tool because the competitor has it. Our competitors all use this tool, therefore we need to buy it. The board asked for it. So-and-so on the board insists that we buy a certain tool. You're buying something when you haven't really defined what problem it solves. It's some fancy, shiny technology. It looks cool. Other people are using it to solve problems. You don't know exactly what problem it's going to solve, but you want to get the tool to figure out what problem it can solve for you. Or it was bought for you without even asking you if you needed it, if you wanted it, if you were ready for it. So if your team is just given some tool, or the board says you have to buy some tool, or your competitor has it, the tool could be fine, but the organization, it's breaking how to make sure this is successful from the get-go. Second category, I would call the broken handoff. So this is where the transition from purchase to implementation. An example of this is this: you have someone assigned to own this tool, own this transition, own whatever it is, but they're at capacity. That you're not giving someone enough time and space to actually lead an effort. But you're saying, okay, Doug, you're in charge of this. And Doug also has to do 120 hours of billable client work, and he's got 40 hours of training on whatever else, and he's got yada, yada, yada. There's no room for Doug to actually run this project of change management, really, to get this into place. And I've seen that happen too, where it was a very valuable tool, that sounds like Jan Brady, a very valuable tool that it was assigned an owner to be accountable, to implement it across projects and start it being used, make sure people are trained. But they were flooded with way too much work already. They didn't have this. They didn't really volunteer for it ahead of time. So the tool was purchased and then said, who wants to own it? So there was no owner lined up ahead of time. And they volunteered, but they just didn't have time to adequately do it. And so, you get 3 months in, 6 months in, and no progress has been made. No one is using it. No one's trained on it. There's no real business case really, built up for it. And, it ends up just sitting there and withering on the vine as well. So broken handoffs, other kinds of broken handoffs would be you have a champion for it. Maybe they're higher up, they're an exec or they're a leader of the division or whatever. You have some champion who has the ability to buy this tool. Maybe even before the ink is wet or the paper is signed or whatever, they're gone. They are promoted or they move to another job. And now you're sitting here with the person who said, this is going to change everything. And then you say, great, let's put budget behind it. And you put budget behind it and you go through months of this process and you're ready to go and you sign for the tool. And then they give their notice and they say bye and they go somewhere else. And now you have this tool that's sitting here and you don't have a champion anymore. Or the vendor closes the deal and the vendor disappears. You sign something up and the vendor says, oh yeah, we'll be there to help you and we have service hours and support and blah, blah, blah. And then you sign up for it and maybe you talk to someone once and then they ghost you and you're going for a month or two and you're saying, what's happened? Where are you guys? I need this help. And they're barely responsive, or it's just a ticketing system that, is not helpful for you. So, these aspects of no champion, no executive sponsor, the vendor disappears, or the support the vendor was promising is not up to what you expected. The person you have assigned to it doesn't have time to actually be accountable. There's a broken handoff. There's no solid ownership happening with it. So that's category 2. Category 3, I'd call the training traps. This is mostly during the implementation of a tool. You bought a tool and, you got to do things like training the team, making sure people are ready to use it. So I've seen this happen where you even have a tool that's there and completely trained up the team. You get people certified, but you don't actually then change any workflows. You're not actually incorporating it. You're telling people, here's a tool, here's how to use it, but you're not really telling them how to use it on their projects or on their clients or on their work. You're kind of expecting them to figure it out. You're giving them a tool in their toolbox, but you're not really saying, here's how I want you to use the tool. So, from a non-software, to keep it kind of more specific, this would be like saying, here's a hammer. Here's how you use a hammer. Here's how you nail nails with a hammer. But you don't really tell people, here's how you do drywall, because you're a drywall business. So people will keep doing the things that they do, even sometimes when you give them a new technology, a new tool, and even teach them how to use it, but you don't teach them how to use it specifically in the work they're doing. So you not only have to train your teams, you have to make sure that you train them in the workflows that they're using these tools. So the training trap, other problems here. So it could be that the tool is just too complex for the team's current data maturity. It's beyond what they have. They don't have enough data to use this thing. For attribution, we like to have at least 2 years of data to go forward. If someone were to come to us and say, we haven't even started doing any kind of advertising yet, but we'd like an attribution tool, like an MMM, in order to measure how effective we are. We have no historic data. We're starting next month. We'd like to buy your tool. I would not sell that tool to them. It's too complex. It's not for them. Training trap, it's too complex for the team's data maturity that you're giving them something. Hey, here's actually a better example would be, I know someone who they asked him to do an MMM. He'd never had any kind of statistics training. He wasn't a data scientist, but they told him to go install Meridian and just do this. And he ended up installing Meridian. He got it to work. He didn't even know how to analyze it. He was using Gemini to help analyze it. It obviously didn't work. And he was just like, this is a complete waste of time. Too complex for the team's data maturity. Something where you train everyone once, you have a nice big training or multiple trainings, but it doesn't get reinforced. You're not reinforcing it with ongoing training, with how to put it into your workflow. You're just kind of saying, here, get trained, get certified, and then expecting magic to happen. And then if you are getting a tool for people and they know how to use the tool, they're trained and certified how to do it, but they don't really have a reason to use it every day. It's not even necessary. They can't really figure out how to use it. So knowing how to use a tool and having to basically knowing how to use a tool and having a reason to use it, these are different things. So that's the other trap is you train people, but they don't really have a reason to use it, or they don't know how to use it. So then it gets us to the fourth category. So last of the 4 categories, call this one the integration gap. So you have someone, so like for category 1, you have someone who championship, you have a use for this tool, and you have someone owning this tool. You have someone who's assigned to own it for the handoff. They're able to take it, they're able to own this, and they have the time to put it through and make sure everyone gets trained. And then you have people trained and certified, and you teach them how to build it into their workflows, and so they're all prepared now to use this tool. But then the fourth problem that I've seen is, again, the integration gap. And so they're ready to, the team knows, they're trained, they're ready to use it, they understand how to use it, but you never actually figured out how to sell it or price it or incorporate it truly into your work. So they might know it in a workflow, but if you're not giving them that workflow, if you're not selling that workflow, if you're not, if you don't have it, like it might make sense, but if they're never doing that workflow for your product, or you're never selling it into a client, you're never marketing it internally, so adoption is low. So you maybe have it in your team and, hey, this is something that our team can offer to the rest of the company, but you don't tell anyone about it. So if you're not marketing it, you're not telling people internally or externally, you're not selling it, and people don't know you do it, it's never going to get done. And then you're not measuring whether people are using it or not, or what value is coming from it. It's never woven into your sales process or go to market. There's no internal champion going out and selling it to other parts of your own company. And you're not really measuring what you're getting out of it. So you don't know whether it's effective or whether it's helping anything. Are we saving money in our process by using this tool? Are we improving the effectiveness of what we're doing? Is this helpful in some governance way? If you don't have a way of saying, okay, this is what we're doing, this is how we're going to measure its effectiveness, here's who's owning it. If you don't have these things, the tool is going to fall apart. So, to come to a close here, I would say, if you have tools that you're not using, if you have tool graveyards you've had in the past, and if this is making you a little more hesitant to pay for a new tool or a new product or a new service, ask yourself some questions before you actually purchase anything. Ask yourself, what specific decision or workflow does this tool improve? Not in theory, but in practice. Like for your team next month, if we had this tool and everyone knew how to use it, how would you be using it? Second question. Once we sign and purchase this tool or product or service, who owns it on our end? Who is going to have protected time to actually own it and do it and be responsible and accountable for moving it forward? If you buy something and no one is accountable for it, there's a very good chance it's not going to get used. It's going to go into the graveyard. So you need to have someone to own it. Another question to ask, how does it change how you work day to day? Not just what you know, but what you're doing. If you can't define how you're changing it, changing the workflow on a day-to-day basis, and what you know, and not just what we know, but like what you're doing, and you might want to question whether you're doing that. So whether you want to use that tool, and then you want to know, how does this show up? How is this going to show up in our external sales process, in our client work, in our go-to-market, in our internal evangelism to the company to say that we have this? These aren't hard questions. It's like, what decision or workflow does this improve? Who's going to own it and make sure it drives forward? How is it going to actually change our day-to-day work? And how is it going to show up to people that they know that we actually can do this, we can sell it, or we can have it as a service internally? Not hard questions. A lot of teams can't answer all these questions, even when they're signing. So I would say that's where the first flags that this could end up in the tool graveyard show up. So kind of final points, I would say the tool is almost never what kills implementation. 75% of the time, it's human process. 25% of the time, it might be the implementation. It's the politics, it's the ownership, it's the workflows, it's the go-to-market. You have to fix the human aspect of this first if the tool is going to have a chance. And yes, that applies to AI as well. This applies very heavily to AI and AI tools. If you skip these questions, if you don't have these things, you are making a donation to that tool graveyard. You are saying, sure, let me spend $20,000 on this, whether that's in tokens to your team and you're running up a bill for AI without anything to show for it, or whether you're buying a very specific tool for $60,000 or $90,000, but you don't have the owners internally, you don't have the workflows internally, you're not selling it to clients or internally, and now suddenly you're behind the eight ball. So I would say, if any of this resonates, what have you seen this? What actually killed the last tool that your team stopped using? Was it the tool, or was it something else? Was it we didn't have an owner, the person that purchased it left the company? Whatever these reasons are, I'm willing to bet that about 3 out of 4 of them are going to be not we couldn't figure out how to implement it, or it was problematic in how it worked. It's almost always one of those four categories, one of those aspects that's about how humans use these things. So think about that before you purchase a tool or product or service. Think about how you actually are going to solve these categories and answer these questions. And if that's interesting, check me out on 3bearsdata.com and look me up on LinkedIn and whatever else. So subscribe and follow and like and whatever else. Thanks.